The Boston Celtics have had their fair share of ups and downs this season, and a lot of that has been centered around the impending free agency of Kyrie Irving. Here's Kyrie yesterday on his season.
A lot of just up and downs that just could have been handled better from a professional standpoint, personal. And I'm talking about me personally. I'm not talking about our team.
So, Richard, any concerns about the Celtics' chemistry as we enter the playoffs?
No, yeah, lots of concerns, especially with Marcus Smart out. Look, when he came back in the postseason last year, he helped turn that Milwaukee series, right? And everybody was saying, look, he's our energy, he's our pulse, he's that guy that just is all over the place. He plays frantic, plays with a passion. So to lose one of your best chemistry guys, and I don't think the first round is really where I think they're dangerous. I think they ultimately will beat Indiana. It's when you get past that, when they get to the second round. That's when, and they're talking about, those obliques can make you miss a lot of time, and you don't want to rush it back because of how much torque and energy you use. But I think once you get to the second round, that's where you miss them. That's when those chemistry issues will show, and I think that's where they ultimately lose.
I mean, you kind of jolted there while he was talking.
Oh, no, because at first when he said, it could have been handled better, and I was waiting for him, by whom? Then he took...
He went like, whoa.
He did take responsibility.
Yeah, he did. I was worried that he was saying, oh, you guys, or it could have been handled better by someone else. But no, as far as, the chemistry issues, I think Richard hit it on the head when you talk about Marcus Smart being kind of the identity, really. He's like the Draymond Green of Boston in that regard. But also, their rotations are thrown off because now the guy who's going to get his minutes is another guy who probably wants to shoot, right? And that's an important part of the balance for Boston, is having enough guys on the floor who their first inclination is, let me get a shot, let me get a touch, right? You got to have guys who are willing to do the other things. And so when Marcus Smart goes out, the next man up is probably going to be Rozier.
Right.
That's a guy who wants to shoot,
He wants buckets.
And so it adds more chefs to the kitchen.
Stan?
At the same time, I mean, there's definite concerns. Brad Stevens has talked about they're not a connected team, and he's talked about that within the last 2 weeks. But if you go back to last year's playoffs, the Celtics thrived having fewer guys. Everybody knew their minutes were coming. So when you know your minutes are coming, you're not as impatient on the floor. You'll go out and play. In a funny way, as much as it hurts them, and I agree with everything said about Marcus Smart, those other guys, Jaylen Brown and Rozier in particular, get more of an opportunity. It may help them. We'll see. But I think they've been better for 2 years when they've had fewer guys.
I agree with you. I'm worried about this particular
guy.
Yeah,
yes.
If it was someone else,
I agree
you
with
could say,
that.
more touches for everyone, more shots for everyone. But it's because it's this guy, meaning the more minutes is going to go to another person who's going to want to shoot more than Marcus.
When you called him the Draymond Green of the Celtics, and let's switch over to that, just Smart specifically, what do you mean exactly?
Well, first of all, the intangibles. All the intangibles are what he brings. The toughness, when you think about why it's irritating to play against the Celtics, why they're so good defensively. Marcus Smart is at the center of all that. But then the other thing is also, he's probably the best switch defender.
Well, he's one of the best floppers, yeah. One of the best floppers.
I'm just saying, on their roster. I'm not saying in the league. I'm saying on their roster. You tell me.
Yeah, no, I agree. But when you're taking out a guy that primarily is that was adorable. But when you're taking out a guy that just has a level of toughness and will just play reckless, and you're going to add a scorer, a person that's looking to shoot, yes, it will help because it might calm down some of the scores. But last year when they missed guys, they were missing guys that were going to be playing 40 minutes a night, 38 minutes a night in Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving. So that made the whole unit kind of come together. You're taking away one of the guys that brings people together. Right. And I think that's going to be where they struggle. But I don't think it's the first round. I think when that fire gets a little bit thicker in the second round, I think that's when it happens.
You mentioned Gordon Hayward. How do you feel he's progressed as you watched him this year?
Well, I think he's been in a very, very difficult situation because he's coming back from injury. And you think about it, Paul George wasn't Paul George the very next year after his injury. Right. It takes time. The problem is the guys that he's coming back and playing with and quote-unquote taking time from are guys that had amazing years, are young guys that are trying to prove themselves, trying to get their second contract. So there was that tension. Even though if Gordon Hayward is 100% healthy in himself, I personally believe that he's still better than those two guys at this juncture in their career. Yeah. Maybe not in 2 years, but at this juncture right now in their career, if Gordon Hayward was the Gordon Hayward from Utah, I think he's better than those two guys right now.
You stand? They think that?
No, God, no, and they shouldn't think that.
They shouldn't.
And they shouldn't think that either.
But where it's going to show up if it does, this team hasn't been connected. Heck, everybody on that team almost has talked about how unhappy everybody is all
Right.
year. So where it's going to show up is when adversity hits.
Yes.
So if they get off to a good start, win the first 2 games, and are able to take care of Indiana, everything's fine. It's when they get, punched for the first time, then we'll see if they can stand up. This doesn't seem to be a connected team. It doesn't seem to be a team that enjoys playing with each other. They're the opposite of what they were last year.
But let's not put it all on the players. A lot of it has to do with this Anthony Davis thing hanging over all the players' heads.
Right.
When you feel like the organization is no longer 100% invested in you and your success, and you feel like you could be trade bait at any point in time, right? I think that's where some of the disconnect. It was already kind of there with the Gordon Hayward coming back, but then it got more disconnected.
And
You know,
not
that's
just-
interesting because
but
we talk
not
about it with
just-
the Lakers, but never with the Celtics.
But not just the Anthony Davis thing. It's also players that you don't think your teammates are all in. They're not sure Kyrie's all in. The Warriors are not sure Kevin Durant's all in. That also affects the way teams feel about each other and the chemistry you have, because you want everybody to feel all in, and I don't think that's with the Celtics right now.